Hey there, and welcome to another episode of The Adaptive Male with Mike Reed. Today, I want to talk about this is a bit of a diary entry, a bit of a journal entry, and a bit of my own perspective into how I've gotten to a point where I have a much better perspective and understanding of my behaviors, my challenges, my self-sabotaging, the way I carry myself through life, the way I interact with people, and understanding like why is it that at times I find myself not saying what I want to say or do what I want to do or be present the way that I want to be present with people or in a conversation or in relationships or anything like that. Personally, I'm a bit more of a science nerd. I'm not much into spirituality. I respect it. I understand it. I see its place. But to me, at times, spirituality tends to be the placeholder until science comes along to catch up. And in fairness, spirituality has been very good about figuring out things before science could figure it out to understand the benefits of it. Totally fair. But generally speaking, I know I find myself much more aroused, we'll say, or in tuned when you can point to a scientific underlying basis of what's going on in your behavior and how to start correcting it, or in your behavior, or in your life, or in your actions, in your word, or your interactions, your relationships, whatever it may be. And so today I want to talk about something I've kind of come to coin as the algorithm. And so if you ever find yourself in day-to-day life, you're talking to somebody, maybe it's your girlfriend, it's your boyfriend, it's your mom, your dad, your siblings, your boss at work, your coworkers, and in conversation, they say something and maybe you disagree, or you vehemently disagree, or maybe you just think this guy or girl can F right off for what they just said, or whatever it may be. And part of you really wants to say that. And then you say the complete opposite. You say, like, this person said something really offensive to me. They really kind of pushed my buttons. And then I didn't say what I was thinking, didn't say how I was feeling. I just kind of let it slide. But then you walk away thinking, like, yeah, but for a second there, I wanted to tell them how I felt. I wanted to be honest. And then that thought just vanished, like instantaneously. But now walking away, suddenly it's coming back. What the frig? Like, why couldn't I just say the thing in the moment when I wanted to? And this is where the algorithm comes into play. The algorithm, in this sense, essentially is all the behavior loops and parts and systems that go into your brain as to how it changes your interactions in social settings or your behaviors at home or your behaviors in life based on how many times you've done that particular thing. So in a perfect world, you might say to yourself something like, when someone says something that I disagree with, I'm going to speak my mind right then and there. And however they respond, that's just their problem, but it's okay because I'm going to be honest to myself and to this person to be authentic. And then in the real world, the algorithm picks up and kicks in and says, well, let me check a few things before we say that. What does their face look like? Do they look like they're a little bit annoyed? Do they look like they're mad at you? Do they look like they could be mad at you or somebody else? Is their tone of voice a little bit erratic or above elevated levels? They're getting a little bit pissed off at you. They're speaking loudly, or they're kind of just pulling back a little bit because they really didn't like what they had to just say right now, or whatever it may be. Or their body language is saying something, or their eyebrows are furled, or they're kind of up a little bit, looking for a little bit of sympathy. They pull back a little bit with their body. They move forward. They're staring at you. They're kind of not really here, not really there. They're kind of just looking at their phone while they're listening to you talk. And as soon as those moments come about, your body, your brain is running all that information through the algorithm. Meaning, what do I want to say? I want to say this, but if they are acting like this, if they say this particular way, if their tone of voice doesn't sound receptive, if their body language seems a little bit off, change it. Why? Change it for what? Change it to maintain social equilibrium. Change it because I don't want to upset this person. Change it because I don't want to upset myself by being authentic. Change it because it might damage my status and reputation to be honest. It might upset the balance of what's going on in the relationship. It might cause some perturbations in them. They might get a little upset with me, and then I have to deal with the fact that I upset them. How do I deal with that? In these situations, this is when you might say, hey, authentic thought, run it through the algorithm, complete opposite of what I wanted to just say. And this is something that will start to build resentment and frustration and anxiety and passive aggressiveness in people when you start walking around saying, I keep wanting to speak my mind and say a particular thing, but I'm afraid of how it's going to land. Because what if they don't like me? What if they're upset with me? Well, then where's the algorithm come from? Where does this happening? The algorithm is something in your brain that has been building up and running through iterative loops of reinforcing certain behaviors your entire life. Day one, As a baby, you're picking up on cues on information, social information in the environment from your parents, from your siblings, from your extended family, from the kids you go to school with, activities. You get a job when you're a teenager, you start in the workforce. You're constantly feeding information to the algorithm to try to do what it can to make sure it maintains social equilibrium at the expense of your own authenticity. Why does it do this? Because evolutionarily, social status and reputation were arguably, on some level, more important than food and water. Because if you had good social standing and good reputation, people will bring you food and water. If you're having a hard time but people like you, they'll help you out. But if you say something that doesn't really vibe with the people around you, you risk losing your status within the group, within the tribe, within the village, within the town, the city, whatever it may be. And losing social status and standing from an evolutionary perspective is quite literally risking death. You could literally be kicked out of the tribe and die if you don't cooperate. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't ever, throughout all of history, disagree, but there is a balancing act to say, I want to disagree, but I also don't want to piss you guys off. How do I do that? This is extremely difficult for a lot of people to articulate, and more often than not, your brain will run through the path of least resistance, which is to say, just agree with them. Just say what they want to hear. Well, what do they want to hear? Watch their body language, watch their eyes, watch their mouth, watch their cheeks, watch their shoulders, watch their body frame, check on the color of their skin. Is it getting a little bit more irritated? Does it look like they kind of shifted around their seat when you said that? Does it look like it kind of caused a little bit of upset? Did they look away? All that information runs through that flowchart, through the algorithm to say, what should I really say so as to minimize the social impact of what I'm about to say? But it doesn't discount the fact that deep down, you really wanted to say something completely different. So when you find yourself in these moments when you say to yourself, why didn't I be honest? Why couldn't I wanted to just say it, but there was a lump in my throat. There was a knot in my chest. I tried to get the words out, my voice fell off. I tried to say it and I started shaking and I started vibrating and I got nervous. I started sweating. I feel like, I don't know. And I also just go with the easy path, passive resistance. Your body's throwing up signals and signs to you to say to you, you might be risking social reputation. You might be risking status. Say something different so as to keep the peace because I want to keep you alive, which is fantastic if we lived 100,000 years ago, 100 million years ago, however the hell long it was when this all evolved. But in today's day and age, there are so many different tribes and so many different types of people out there and so many groups you could be a part of that you can find a place to be authentic, to be yourself. And more often than not, you'll find yourself much happier when you're not afraid to be yourself and speak your mind. So then the question behind all of this becomes, how do we retrain our algorithms? How do we rewire that? How do we change the code? And two things come to mind. One, it's a challenge to change it, but two, it's even harder to understand and know what it is. What is your algorithm? What is your behavior loop? What does your flowchart look like? You probably don't know because your brain really doesn't like you to change things that it deems functional. Even if it's not effective or helpful, it's functional enough. Things like addiction are a good example of functional enough. Maybe it hasn't killed you yet, but it's functional enough in minimizing pain and maximizing pleasure in the short term. So the simple question might be, okay, how do I identify my algorithm? What do I do? Quick and simple steps, although it's simple yet not as easy as it sounds, is start journaling. When you have a day, you have a moment, you have an incident where you want to say something and you don't say what you know you really wanted to say, but it's still sitting in the back of your mind, write it down somewhere. Write it down. I had a conversation with so-and-so today. They said this, I said this, I really wanted to say this, but I couldn't. Okay. That's a good first step in trying to understand in these situations with these specific people under these circumstances, this is how I tend to talk, even though this is how I want to talk. Getting it on paper or on a notepad or on your phone or something like that helps you to start to see, oh, these are my patterns. This is how I do things. This is what my algorithm is doing to me, even though I think I'm in control. It's actually overriding my executive function. It's overriding my logic because I could see the patterns here. Every time I talk to so-and-so at work and this particular conversation comes up, I feel anxious. Or every time I talk to so-and-so in my relationship, I feel nervous. Whatever it may be, that's your way of trying to identify what's in the algorithm. The second one, not as fun, way more difficult, but really effing effective. Ask people you trust about how you act. Talk to people you know. Ask them, when's the last time you saw me get really angry? What happened? And was I able to get it under control? When's the last time you saw me be like confident? What did it look like? What was I doing? What circumstances was I in? The last time we had a disagreement, what was going through your mind? And what did you think I was really thinking? What did I act like? How did I act? What did I do? How did I feel? How did I feel? That's not for you to decide. But getting external input from people about behaviors that you might have that you yourself can't see. Someone like, oh, you seems like when you want to say something, you seem to like your shoulders kind of pull back and you withdraw. You look away. Your head goes down. You kind of get a little bit nervous. You kind of start like, get fidgety. It's always around these particular conversations, though. It's always around these particular people, under these circumstances, in this place, on this thing, under this topic. It always seems like there's something I notice, like this pattern. Like every time since I've known you, you seem to go a little bit weird when this thing comes up. Cool. There it is. There's part of your algorithm right there. Not the entire thing, but it's part of it. It's part of it telling you this is where we can start looking to figure out where it comes from, or where it is in your head, and what behaviors you should watch out for in the future. Second point is, how do we change it? How do we rewrite it? How do we change the code? The toughest part of rewriting behaviors is step one, self-awareness, to acknowledge that you have behaviors that you want to change and can actually see them in the moment. Step two is the work to actually change the behavior, because your brain doesn't like you to change behaviors that it deems functional. It's kind of like that scene from The Wizard of Oz when he says, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. In this case, the man behind the curtain is the algorithm. He's the one pushing the buttons when certain inputs come along, and it doesn't want you to see what's happening, so then it can't change it because it may deem it functional. It likes it. It's working well enough to keep you alive, and survival is all that matters to your brain. Surviving is not thriving, though. So then how do we change the algorithm? How do we start to do the work to move in that direction? Something like exposure therapy is a fantastic example of whatever you can tolerate, whatever it may be. I want to have a difficult conversation with somebody, but I can't see them face to face. But I do need to have a conversation. I do want to say something. Preface it with the person. Say like, hey, I have some things I want to talk to you about. It's going to be difficult for me to say, so I might get a little bit shaky, but I just appreciate if you could just sit here and listen and not say anything and do your best to just hear me out. Or it might be something like, well, I've been really wanting to talk to my boss about that one thing. Maybe I should just write up a little script of what I'd like to say ahead of time. Send him an email, say, hey, do you have 5 minutes to chat privately? Or maybe it's your girlfriend. Like, we need to set aside some time to have a difficult conversation. Do you mind if we talk in like an hour or two? I know just the idea of me saying that is getting us both a little agitated. So we'll do it after we go for a long walk together. Or we'll do it after we do some exercise. We'll do it after dinner or just something like that. And just kind of ease ourselves down to try to calm down that algorithm spinning up going, oh no, confrontation's coming. Something bad's going to happen. Conversation I don't want to have is about to happen. Run for the hills. That's where you can put down ahead of time and says like, I don't want to have this conversation, but I know we need to have this conversation. Let's have this conversation. So starting points being journaling, talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to your coworkers, ask them for honest input about how they see you and see if it lines up with how you want to present yourself. And then start having those moments where you have an opportunity to step into the discomfort, stepping into your edge, stepping into your uncomfortable zone, whatever that may be, to start having these conversations around things that have been bothering you. And practice grounding yourself through things like meditation, through breath work, through understanding that even if a person doesn't like you, it doesn't mean you're going to die, even though it feels like it in the back of your brain, even though your brain is wired to look for those situations of social exclusion, social ostracization, social rejection, social abandonment. There's still other people out there to talk to. There's places you can be your authentic self without risk of being kicked out of the tribe, because there's so many goddamn tribes out there now. There's so many opportunities for different people. It's a lot more complicated than that, but this is a good starting point to think about. So step one, identifying your algorithm, journaling, write things down, talk to people, talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to people who can point to you, even if you don't want to hear it. Have them text you if you can't have the conversation. Have them email you. Have them write a letter to you and say like, you're a good person, but this is what I noticed you doing. Here you go. And it's going to feel disgusting. It's going to feel horrible because your brain's sitting there going, I don't want to hear this. I don't want you looking behind the curtain because this algorithm is functional enough to keep us alive right now. I'm more concerned with you surviving, not thriving. Step two, have those conversations. Step out there into your uncomfortable zone. Figure out what it may be. I'm nervous talking to women. Go talk to women. Doesn't have to be asking them for a date. Just spark up a conversation with the random person, the clerk you see at the bank or the grocery store. Make a comment at maybe at the gym, at the mall, wherever you go to. If you have female coworkers, just try practicing. How's your weekend? How's your day going? What did you have for lunch today? And you'll feel all that resistance coming up from the algorithm going, this is not how you do things. This is not how you do. What are you doing? This is not part of the script. This is not part of the flowchart, part of the code. We don't talk to women. We don't talk to strangers. We don't do things that go beyond outside of the algorithm's code. What are you doing? But with time, if you do this enough, eventually your brain's going to have to say to itself, okay, well, this guy keeps doing the thing opposite to what the code says. So either I can keep fighting him or I can rewrite the code. And you do this enough times, eventually that code will start to say, I do talk to people. I am my authentic self. I do have uncomfortable conversations with people when I need to. And it doesn't feel great all the time, but I'm not afraid to lean into that discomfort anymore because I've done it enough that I can do it. And if I need to, I can always revert back to my notes to figure out what happens and what do I do under certain circumstances when it happens. If this sounds like something you'd be interested in hearing more about, I'd love to talk about it more. Share it with somebody you know, like, comment, subscribe, whatever format you're hearing this on through Spotify or YouTube or whatever it may be. And looking forward to speaking more in the future. Let's keep adapting. Have a great day.